My name is Charlotte Grant, and at 60 years old, I walked across a stage to receive my master's degree. 6 long years of evening classes, endless textbooks, countless cups of coffee, and weekends buried in assignments instead of social events had all led to this day. I had imagined it so vividly, my family's proud faces in the crowd, my children snapping photos, my grandchildren waving. But when my name was called, I glanced at the seats I had reserved months in advance, 6 of them, and they were all empty. The people who mattered most weren't there. I tightened my grip on my diploma folder, forcing a smile for strangers who clapped politely. This was meant to be a shared celebration, proof that it's never too late to chase a dream. Instead, it felt like a deeply personal victory overshadowed by an aching absence. After the ceremony, I searched the exit doors, half hoping they'd rush in late, flowers in hand, apologizing for traffic or some mix-up. But they didn't. I stood outside in my cap and gown as other graduates posed for photos with their families, laughter echoing around me. A kind classmate took my picture. I told myself I'd hold it together until I got home. That night, sitting at my kitchen table with my diploma propped against a vase of grocery store flowers I'd bought for myself, I realized something had to change, and it had to start with me. Before I became Charlotte, master's degree graduate, I had been Charlotte, the dependable one. The woman who married at 20, raised 2 children, worked full-time at the bank, and quietly pushed her own dreams aside for decades. I had always loved learning. In my early 20s, I planned to go to graduate school right after my bachelor's degree. But life intervened. I married Thomas, and soon after came our son Brian. Then our daughter Lydia. Bills piled up faster than we could pay them, and continuing my education felt selfish and impossible. Thomas worked long hours at the plant, and my job became our financial anchor. Between soccer games, school meetings, and laundry at midnight, I told myself my dream could wait. And it did 40 years. When Thomas passed away suddenly, the house became too big and too quiet. My children were grown and busy with their own families. For the first time in decades, my time was my own. That's when the old dream returned. I didn't need a degree for career advancement at my age. I needed it to prove to myself I could still achieve it. I enrolled in a part-time MBA program. The schedule was brutal. 8 hours at the bank, then classes from 6 to 9 p.m., 3 nights a week. Weekends were for research papers and group projects. Dinner was often a quick sandwich at my desk, and my living room turned into a library. There were nights I questioned why I was doing it. Brian once teased, "Mom, are you trying to be the oldest MBA in town?" Lydia laughed and told me I'd become too serious. They didn't mean to hurt me, but their words lingered. Still, I reminded myself this wasn't just for a diploma. It was a promise to the young woman I used to be. Over the years, I missed countless family moments, birthdays, Sunday dinners, coffee dates, because of assignments or exams. I believed they understood, and that they were quietly proud. As graduation approached, I imagined all those sacrifices would make sense when we finally celebrated together. When the official date arrived, June 12th, I marked it in red on every calendar I had. I reserved the maximum 6 guest seats. 1 each for Brian and Lydia, 1 for my sister Evelyn, and 3 for my grandchildren. I pictured them together in the audience, waving as I crossed the stage. Afterward, we'd head to Bel Rossi, the Italian restaurant I'd always wanted to try, with its warm lighting and elegant dishes I could barely pronounce. I wanted the night to feel special, not just for me, but for all of us. It didn't turn out that way. It hadn't been cheap, but I told myself I deserved it. I'd reserved a big table by the window with a view of the city lights and booked both a hair and makeup appointment for the morning of the ceremony. I rarely treated myself like that, but this felt like a once-in-a-lifetime milestone. In a boutique I almost never visited, I found the perfect navy dress with delicate lace sleeves. Elegant without being too flashy. When I tried it on, the sales clerk said, "You look like you're about to win an award." One afternoon, my granddaughter Emma peeked in as I was turning this way and that in front of the mirror. "Grandma, you look like a queen," she said with a grin. I laughed, but my eyes stung. It had been years since I'd dressed up for anything not tied to work. In the weeks before the big day, I kept checking my plans, confirming the restaurant, calling the salon, making sure my cap and gown were wrinkle-free. I even started a small box for keepsakes. The invitation, a printed program, and a note I planned to write to myself afterward. Everything was perfectly arranged, and for once, I allowed myself to believe nothing could go wrong. This wasn't just a graduation. It was the proof of 6 years of perseverance, a promise kept to myself, and a message to my family that it's never too late to dream. 3 weeks before the ceremony, Brian called. His tone was casual. Too casual. "Hey Mom. Just realized the block party's on June 12th. The kids have been excited for weeks." I froze. "Brian, that's my graduation day. I told you months ago." He hesitated, then said, "Yeah, but you'll have other celebrations. The kids would be bored. It's just one ceremony, right?" I swallowed hard. "It's 6 years of my life." He sighed sympathetically, but I could tell he'd made up his mind. "We'll see what we can do." 2 days later, Lydia called. "Mom, I hate to say this, but Mark's parents are having a big family barbecue that afternoon. Cousins flying in and everything. It's kind of a big deal." I tried to respond, but she cut in. "I'll try to come to the ceremony if I can, but I can't promise. The kids want to see their cousins." "Try and can't promise" rang in my ears after we hung up. I stared at my neat guest list, suddenly seeing how fragile it really was. I told myself Evelyn would come. She'd always been my rock, and Lydia had at least said she'd try. Surely they wouldn't all let me down. Still, that night, as I folded my gown back into its bag, unease crept in. A quiet voice whispered, "Be ready. Not everyone sees this day the way you do." The morning of June 12th was bright and clear. Perfect early summer weather. I woke early, had coffee, and laid out my dress, shoes, and press gown. At the salon, my hair and makeup came out so well I almost didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. Proud, elegant, ready to celebrate. For a moment, I believed the day would go just as planned. When I pulled into my driveway, birds were singing, children playing somewhere in the distance. I opened my front door, expecting the sound of my grandchildren or my kids chatting. The house was silent. On the counter was a folded note with my name. "Took the kids to the barbecue early. We'll try to make it to the ceremony. Congrats, Lydia." I stood there, the words blurring. The silence pressed in. I smoothed the paper flat, told myself to keep moving. I slipped into my dress, clasped the silver necklace Thomas had given me years ago, and put on my gown. In the mirror, I looked like a graduate. Inside, the excitement had drained away, replaced by a dull ache. This was still my day, I reminded myself. Even if they didn't come, I had earned it. I grabbed my bag, locked the door, and drove toward campus, repeating that thought like a fragile prayer. The campus was alive with excitement. Graduates in black caps and gowns clustered in groups, posing for photos with their families. Laughter rang out, camera flashes lit the air, and the faint scent of flowers drifted by from bouquets in proud parents' hands. After checking in at the registration table and collecting my name card, I joined my classmates in line. Around me, people hugged their loved ones before finding their places. I searched the crowd for Brian's tall frame, Lydia's bright smile, Evelyn's silver hair, but saw no one. The ushers guided us into the auditorium. Passing by the section where 6 seats had been reserved for my guests, my heart sank. They were perfectly aligned, untouched, waiting. 6 silent reminders of broken promises. I sat down among the other graduates, willing myself to focus on the ceremony. The university president spoke about perseverance, the dean about community and support, words that only emphasized the absence of my own. When my row was called, I stood, smoothed my gown, and walked to the stage. The applause was warm but impersonal. My name, Charlotte Grant, Master of Business Administration, was read aloud. I shook the dean's hand, accepted my diploma, and stole one last glance at those empty seats. After the ceremony, families poured out onto the lawn for photos. Arms full of flowers and gifts, they circled their graduates. I lingered at the edge, diploma in hand, feeling both unseen and overly visible. A kind classmate offered to take my picture. I smiled for her, though my eyes told another story. On the drive home, I tried not to check my phone, but eventually gave in. Social media showed my children, sister, and grandchildren laughing around a barbecue grill, marshmallow smudges on small faces, Smiles that said they were exactly where they wanted to be. That night, I placed my diploma on the kitchen table beside flowers I'd bought myself. The quiet pressed in. The empty seats weren't just about today. They echoed years of me showing up for others with no one doing the same for me. I thought about the late nights, the missed family events, all sacrificed for a goal I believed mattered. I had imagined this day with my loved ones beside me, proud. Instead, I'd been shown my place in their priorities. It dawned on me that this was not a one-off disappointment. It was a pattern. I had always been the dependable one, the fixer, the listener, the one who bent her life to accommodate others. My dreams and milestones were consistently treated as secondary. Something inside shifted. I couldn't rewrite the past, but I could change what I would accept moving forward. My time, my energy, my achievements deserved respect. Not as rare exceptions, but as a given. It wasn't a dramatic moment, more like a lock clicking into place. I folded my gown, put the diploma away, and made myself a promise. I would still show up for the people I loved, but not at the cost of disappearing in my own life. If they couldn't meet me halfway, I would stop walking the whole distance alone. Change was gradual. Small decisions at first, ones I'd have made differently before. When Brian called one Saturday asking if I could watch the kids for a last-minute event, I told him I already had plans. The truth was it was just a quiet afternoon at the library and coffee with a friend, but they were my plans, and I kept them. When Lydia hinted that I should host Thanksgiving again, because it's easier at your place, I suggested rotating hosting duties instead. She was surprised but agreed. This wasn't about withdrawing from family, it was about making room for my own life. Over time I saw the shift. They began inviting me in advance instead of assuming I'd be available. Conversations became more balanced. They asked about my job at the bank, my classes, the book club I'd joined. There were awkward moments too. Once, when I declined an invitation because I had a trip planned, Brian commented, "You're really busy these days, Mom." I smiled and said, "Yes, I am, and I like it that way." For the first time in years, I felt like my life was my own. 6 months after graduation, I came home one Saturday to see my driveway full of unfamiliar cars. My first thought was that someone was lost. But when I opened the door, I was greeted with a chorus of surprise. Brian stood holding a cake decorated in navy and gold, my school colors. Lydia carried lilies, my favorite flowers. Evelyn snapped photos in the corner, and my grandchildren rushed to hug me. "We wanted to do this months ago," Brian admitted. "We didn't, and we should have." Lydia added, "We're proud of you, Mom. I'm sorry we weren't there that day." The house was warm with the smell of pasta and garlic bread, the table set for a feast. The walls were covered in printed photos of me in my cap and gown, pictures a classmate had sent Evelyn. As I cut the cake, listening to the laughter and chatter, I knew this couldn't erase the hurt of that day. But it was acknowledgement, belated, imperfect, but real. Later that night, alone again, I sat with a slice of leftover cake and thought about the past year. The diploma on my wall symbolized perseverance, but my greatest achievement was something less tangible. I had learned that my worth isn't measured solely by what I give to others. It's also in how I honor my own time, goals, and boundaries. Loving my family didn't mean neglecting myself. It meant expecting love and respect to flow both ways. The empty seats at my graduation had once felt like rejection. Now I saw them as the moment I stopped waiting for recognition and started building it for myself, with or without anyone else's applause. If you've ever been taken for granted, I hope my story reminds you, it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Celebrate your milestones, guard your boundaries, and don't be afraid to be your own loudest cheerleader.